That was a tangent. I have no idea what I wanted to talk about, to be honest. Ciao, I'm Mario, a Swiss car guy on YouTube, and today I'm driving my 2008 Lexus LS600H. This is another driving around video. And in this video I want to talk about cars and car passion, because I don't see a lot of car passion in young people nowadays. And also myself, I think I'm starting to maybe lose a bit of passion. So how is it that young people nowadays don't seem to be that much interested in cars? I guess when I was young, or when generations before me were younger, there just wasn't that much stuff around. Therefore a car was something pretty exciting. But nowadays the kids, they have everything. They have the internet at their fingertips. They can watch videos whenever they want. They can go out and do whatever they want. Therefore, I think a car may not be that interesting to them anymore. Also, especially with the internet, with smartphones and stuff like that, I think for the younger generation, it is more important to have a smartphone than to have a car. I think I got my first mobile phone when I was 15 or 16, I guess. And that was not a smartphone. You could make calls with it, you could send SMS, and that was basically it. Even though I have to say it did have web, which was that weird crude form of mobile internet, which to me was basically useless. I mean, you can watch videos and stuff like that, and it had a monochrome display. Even though I had a phone before I had a driver's license, to me the two things are not interchangeable, because even back then, if I wanted to go somewhere, I needed to have a car and a driver's license, and otherwise I would have to take public transport, which is something I don't like doing. I don't like public transport, all right? But nowadays, if you have a smartphone, you can basically arrange transportation, being that you call an Uber or a Lyft or whatever you have in your area, or that you just look up the public transport schedules, and maybe you even pay for the public transport with your phone. Also, I think young people, they are more connected. They may spend a bit less time in person and more through chats, through video calls and things like that. And therefore it is not that important to go from point A to point B, as long as you can communicate with your smartphone. Therefore, I think that for younger people, smartphones, they kind of replace the car in some way. And also, I've touched on it a few times already, because I think the cars have become too perfect. I think there are no more bad cars being sold nowadays as new cars. And therefore, I think also the differences between the cars, they tend to become smaller and smaller, especially with electrification, where you won't even have a difference in performance or in engine sound or whatever. So I think that makes it a bit hard to get excited for cars when they're all basically the same, and they all do the same, and they all feel the same. What's the point in getting excited for one special car model or one special car brand when car companies are all merging together, they're all collaborating, joint venturing together, and then I really think, the cars, they become more and more similar, and there's very little to get excited about. Then again, I have to say, from a personal point of view, I am not a car guy because cars are convenient. Certainly I like the cars are convenient, and to me a car has to be convenient. Therefore I expect a car to be daily drivable. But to me, I've always loved cars. Since I was a very, very small child, and probably completely irrationally, but I've always loved cars. And my mom tells me I knew cars before I knew a lot of other stuff. And to me, I feel like I'm reaching a bit of a point where I'm starting to lose the passion for the cars. And I still like cars. I still think about cars a lot. I still dream about cars quite often, to be honest. But to me, there's nowadays so many car models. It's not even overwhelming. It's just I don't really care anymore. Think about Ferrari, for example. Ferrari now has like 6 models in their lineup. And that's insane. Because who was there thinking, oh well, we need more choice at Ferrari? I mean, how many models do you need? And even every car manufacturer is trying to get into every niche, so therefore you have now models in between and crossovers and everything. And to me that's like, why? Why would you bother with that? And that makes it a bit harder to get, enthusiastic about cars, especially also with the current trend towards SUVs, which I think most car guys, they will like cars that are a bit more sporty, that handle a bit better, and the SUV is like the antithesis of that, because they're tall, they have a high center of gravity, they lean a lot, they are not sporty cars. Then again, some of them are quite comfortable, which is something I theoretically like. But it used to be that cars like this, like big sedans, were the comfortable cars. And then all the sedans started to become sporty, and because they needed to have a good time around the Nürburgring, even though that makes absolutely no sense. And therefore nowadays, kind of, if you want a car that's really comfortable, you either get one of those rare exceptions like the Mercedes S-Class, the Lexus LS, even though the newer Lexus LS than this is not as comfortable as this older barge, or you get an SUV. And ideally you don't get one with a sport suspension or with an M badge or with an AMG badge. You get a regular one that's supposed to be comfortable. Another indication of me sort of losing my passion for cars is that I said I have two cars. I have a Nissan GT-R and a Lexus LS600H. Yet the car I like most is the Lexus and not the Nissan. Even though the Nissan was kind of a dream car for me. But driving it, daily driving it, it's like a bit, I wish it was more comfortable. I wish it was more practical, even though I have to say the trunk is way larger in the GT-R than in this big Lexus. But still, the GT-R is not the most practical car. And a couple of weeks ago I took it up into the mountains with a few other car guys where we went to drive some mountain passes, and it was beautiful. I mean, really, we even got up at 5 o'clock in the morning in order to be alone on the streets, which was insane, but totally worth it actually. And we had a very good time. But even for those roads, the GT-R doesn't really work that well, because they're all rather slow roads with some very tight corners, and in those very tight, like 180 corners, with the GT-R you have to go down to first gear, because in second gear you have too much turbo lag and it takes you forever to get out of the corners. So I'm still very torn, because I still reckon the GT-R is a great car, and I'm actually lucky because I have it so good, because that car is really fast, it handles really well, and comparably it's kind of cheap to run. It doesn't break very often. It's a very good car to have, and why would I want to replace it with something else? I mean, that's insane, right? And the reason is obvious. I'm kind of not that passionate about it anymore. So I've been looking into replacements, and I recently asked the viewers, you, if you could guess what it was, because I said it was a car that's, not necessarily that much slower than a GT-R. It's ugly on the outside, but it's really rather pretty on the inside. And by the way, this is just an idea. It's not I'm going to buy that car. It's just a car I am considering, because I think it's a bit expensive, and it might be kind of a nightmare to maintain. Also, it's a car that's actually not that pretty, so why am I even considering it? Well, the reason is quite simple, because I'm not only a Swiss car guy, I'm also Italian, and as an Italian I would really like to own a Ferrari at some point, and I want a V12 Ferrari, and ideally it would be a manual, but then again I don't really like driving manuals. So in Ferrari world that means either get one with the F1 transmission, the single clutch automatic, which is not that great, and also it's not that reliable in the sense that the clutch wears out in 15 to 30,000 kilometers, and then it's a clutch job every time, and that's kind of expensive and I don't really like it, and the transmission is a bit jerky. So to me it would have to be a dual clutch car, and the cheapest V12 dual clutch Ferrari you can buy nowadays is the FF, the car that nobody seems to remember, the Ferrari 4, because it had four-wheel drive with a very complicated system with a second gearbox at the front and stuff like that. And yeah, when that goes wrong, it's incredibly expensive. But it's a car I somehow find really interesting because the outside, again, I think it looks ugly. The proportions are wrong. I don't think it's hideous. I just don't like it that much. And it reminds me a bit of the BMW Z3 Coupe, the clown shoe, because also it has these wrong proportions all over it. But what I really like about the car, as I already mentioned, the interior is really nice. Plus, it actually seats 4 people quite comfortably, so it's reasonably practical. It has a hatchback with kind of a large trunk. In fact, it's larger than the trunk in my Lexus. I think every car has a trunk that is larger than the one in my Lexus, but still, it's practical. Then with four-wheel drive, you could basically even drive it in winter without too many problems, and it still has like a V12 with 660 horsepower and does 0 to 100 in like 4 seconds or something like that. It's kind of a jack of all trades, and also for a Ferrari, it's actually not that uncomfortable. I reckon it's much more comfortable than my Nissan GT-R. So the car I'm interested in is the Ferrari FF. And none of you guessed it, because, as I already mentioned, it's sort of the Ferrari everybody forgets. I'm also aware that this is one of the 4-seater Ferraris. So 4-seater Ferraris are the ones that are less interesting in general, and they also do not keep their value that well. And in this case, that's also the case because, as I said, it's the cheapest dual clutch V12 Ferrari you can buy right now. And we're talking of prices between, I think, 80 and let's say 100,000 francs. Anything over 100,000 francs, which is obscenely expensive, in my view, is also too much for many cars. So again, we have deluded sellers asking like crazy money for cars with 120,000 kilometers and stuff like that. I mean, get real. But I reckon 80, maybe 90,000 Swiss francs should be able to buy me a nice example, which again is an insane amount of money. So the Ferrari FF is a car I'm considering, and I think this is a car that could tick a lot of boxes. But then again, it's so damn expensive, and I sort of can't really justify spending that much money on a car. I mean, sure, it has depreciated a lot, but I reckon it will still depreciate another bit. Not as much as it already has, but you know, upkeep will be expensive. Insurance, interestingly enough, not that expensive. Actually, pretty much exactly the same as I pay right now, so that's not a problem. But I don't know. I just know I want another car, and maybe I don't replace the GT-R because, hey, the GT-R is not really hurting me. Maybe instead of getting the FF, of spending crazy money on an old car, I just get a third car, a cheap car that's a bit interesting, that is something I would like. Because, I mean, why not? It's been years since I bought my last car. But the reason is quite obvious. Because in today's market, everything is ridiculously expensive. All the cars have gone up. So even if you want something like, I would personally like a Lexus SC400, because the cars are rare here in Switzerland. They were never officially sold in Europe. Yeah, there are very few. And the ones that are around, they sell for like crazy money, or at least they're offered a crazy money. And I know I'm not gonna do that. So even though I would like to buy something, I don't know if I'm ever going to. So much for resolution, right? So this video originally was about passion for cars, and okay, I went into why young people might not be as passionate, and I went into what's happening with me. I mean, I am still very passionate about cars because, hey, I'm making a YouTube channel here, to be honest. And maybe a new car will reignite my passion. What about you? Have you lost your passion, or did your passion grow over the years? Please comment down below. Otherwise, that's enough rambling for this video. I'm about to drive into a tunnel, and this time I will not stop the video. So thank you for watching from within the tunnel. Consider subscribing to my channel if you like these ramblings and my videos in general. And basically that's it. This video is done. Thank you so much for watching, and have a nice day. I can't believe I actually continued in a tunnel. I didn't think it was possible, but it is. Life goes on within the tunnel. You see? The video is going on in the tunnel.